you tried making a distress signal? Or a bigger fire?
Sam Raimi's movie, Send Help, shows weaponized victimhood, the psychological descent into evil. In Send Help, director Sam Raimi crafts a survival story that is far less about the physical dangers of isolation and far more about the psychological transformation that trauma can produce when it is left unresolved. Starring Rachel McAdams as Linda Little and Dylan O'Brien as Bradley Preston, the film begins like many survival thrillers. A small group of people trapped after a catastrophic event, forced to depend on one another in order to survive. Yet beneath its premise lies a darker exploration of how victimhood, when left psychologically unprocessed, can evolve into something dangerous. The tragedy of Linda Little is not that she was victimized. The film makes it abundantly clear that she was. The tragedy is what she becomes after that victimization takes root in her identity.
You ever hunt? I think I like it.
Before the island survival scenario begins, Linda is established as someone who has endured a deeply humiliating workplace dynamic. Her boss's behavior, predatory, manipulative, and degrading, places her in a position many viewers recognize as painfully real. Power imbalances in professional environments often leave victims feeling trapped, silenced, and psychologically diminished. Send Help does not dismiss this reality. In fact, it emphasizes it. Linda's suffering is legitimate. She was treated unfairly. She was objectified. She was made to feel powerless. These experiences matter because they shape how she perceives the world afterward. But the film asks a difficult question. What happens when a person defines themselves primarily through that wound? When the plane crash strands Linda and Bradley together, the narrative initially suggests redemption. In one of the film's most important early moments, Linda rescues Bradley despite their complicated relationship. Her choice reflects compassion and moral instinct. She does not owe him help, yet she gives it anyway. Linda rescues Bradley despite their complicated relationship. At this stage, Linda demonstrates something crucial. She still possesses agency independent of her trauma. She could walk away. She could build something new. She could leave the past behind. And when Bradley decided to not reciprocate that kindness and double down on his abusive behavior, she could have just walked away. She had no obligation to him, and this would have been a healthy, warranted decoupling. But she doesn't. The psychological trap of victim identity. One of the most fascinating psychological threads in Send Help is how Linda's victimhood slowly becomes weaponized. Rather than processing the abuse she endured, Linda internalizes it in a way that keeps her aggressor alive inside her mind. His influence persists, not through physical presence, but through psychological domination. This is a crucial concept in trauma psychology. Unresolved abuse often continues internally even after the external threat disappears. Is that she never truly escapes her oppressor. Instead, she becomes psychologically shaped by him. Her actions begin to shift. Control becomes her central focus. Every interaction turns into a subtle test of dominance. What began as survival cooperation slowly morphs into psychological warfare. Bradley becomes more than a companion stranded on an island. He becomes a symbol. In Rachel's mind, he represents the broader male authority structure that once humiliated her. Instead of confronting the original source of her trauma, she projects that anger onto the person closest to her. This is where victimhood begins transforming into aggression, the birth of the aggressor. A critical moment in the film occurs when Linda realizes that controlling Bradley gives her a sense of power she never had before. For someone who has felt powerless for so long, the psychological pull of this newfound control becomes intoxicating. What begins as emotional manipulation gradually escalates into cruelty. The chilling reality the film portrays is that abuse does not automatically produce empathy. Sometimes, if left untreated, it produces the opposite: Pain can either generate compassion or it can generate vengeance. Linda chooses vengeance. In doing so, she becomes the very thing she once hated. Her boss may have humiliated her, but Linda's transformation ultimately leads her to commit acts far worse. She crosses a moral line that her original abuser never did. She becomes capable of violence not only toward Bradley, but also toward innocent bystanders caught in the chaos of the island situation, such as the boat pilot and Bradley's wife, who arrive hoping to help. At that point, Linda is no longer merely a victim. She has become a perpetrator, and the film refuses to soften that reality. One of the most provocative layers of Send Help involves its exploration of gender dynamics. Rachel's character arc subtly critiques the idea that liberation can come from simply reversing power roles. If oppression is framed purely as men dominating women, then the solution can easily be misinterpreted as women dominating men. But domination itself is the problem. Linda never truly seeks healing or equality. Instead, she seeks reversal. Her empowerment becomes rooted in conquest rather than balance. This is why her character becomes so psychologically unsettling. She begins to treat Bradley not as a person, but as an embodiment of everything that hurt her. His individual identity disappears in her mind. He becomes merely a target. The film's message here is subtle but powerful. When gender conflicts are reduced to simple narratives of conqueror and conquered, both sides risk becoming mirrors of the same destructive impulse. Aggression is not exclusive to masculinity. Psychological and emotional aggression can be equally destructive, and Send Help illustrates this reality through Rachel's transformation. The tragedy is that Rachel believes she is reclaiming power. In truth, she is surrendering to the same domination logic that once controlled her life, the lost opportunity. What makes Rachel's descent so heartbreaking is that she had an opportunity to choose differently. Her rescue of Brian early in the story demonstrates that she was capable of empathy and moral clarity. She had the chance to walk away from her trauma and build something new in the isolation of the island. But healing requires confronting pain rather than wielding it. Rachel instead allows her past to define her future. The result is a psychological spiral where every act of control reinforces the identity she has built around victimhood. Each cruel decision confirms the narrative she has constructed in her mind, that the world is a battlefield of domination, and on that battlefield, she believes mercy is weakness, winning by losing. By the film's end, Rachel appears to have achieved a form of victory. She has seized control of the situation. She has outmaneuvered the people around her. She has become the most powerful individual in the story. But psychologically, she has lost everything. The person who once humiliated her still controls her life because her entire identity revolves around responding to that humiliation. Her revenge does not free her, it enslaves her. In becoming more monstrous than her oppressor, she ensures that his influence never truly dies.